Last week, former Utah governor and Republican presidential candidate Jon Huntsman declared that what the country needed was a good third party. And as the GOP nomination draws out due to voter dissatisfaction with Mitt Romney and Rick Santorum, the political marketplace seems ripe for the emergence of a third option. And joining me on set is a man who believes he is that alternative to the establishment, Libertarian Party presidential candidate and former New Mexico Governor Gary Johnson. Governor, it's so good to have you back with us today.
Alexis, great to be on. And yeah, I happen to agree with Governor Huntsman that there needs to be a viable third-party alternative. And I am seeking the Libertarian nomination for president. I really think Libertarians maybe embrace the best of both parties, the notion of fiscally conservative and with a broad brush, socially liberal.
Yeah, and I want to get to your decision to seek the Libertarian nomination in a minute, but I want to start this conversation with Afghanistan because we see 2 more American deaths there. It looks like the riots aren't going to stop anytime soon. I mean, what is your take on the situation there? We've been there over a decade. What do you think needs to happen with the strategy there?
I think we need to get out. We need to get out now, and that the issues that we're going to face when we get out are going to be the same today as they are going to be another 11 years from today.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we saw this controversy, too, with President Obama's apology to Hamid Karzai. Would you have apologized for the Quran burning?
You know, these things are going to happen. They're going to continue to happen. Maybe there's a sensitivity in the apology, but I think that this is going to be ongoing, and the longer we're there, we're just delaying the inevitable. That whatever happens when we pull out will be the same today as it will be another 30 years from now.
And I think American sentiment is kind of lining up behind. We see a growing attitude that we need to get out of there. But what about like other regions like Iran and Syria where it looks like we may be getting involved? I mean, would you continue the droning program that the president seems to have used successfully, or what would you do with those regions?
Well, I don't want to speak ill-informed. I mean, there are terrorist threats. I don't deny that these threats exist and that we should be vigilant to those threats. But when I read about a drone strike that, yes, wipes out the target, but then wipes out a city block to go along with it, if I'm part of that civilian city block that's gotten wiped out, if my family's gotten wiped out, I'm now an enemy against the United States for the rest of my life, and maybe I become militant to that degree. Maybe I become an activist when it comes to terrorism against the United States.
Yeah, and you know,
the unintended consequence of everything we do. We're dealing with Iran right now. Because why? Because we took out Iraq. We took out Saddam Hussein. That was Iran's only concern every single morning. What's Saddam Hussein? What's Iraq going to do to us today? We take them out. We take that threat away, and now they're raising their head, and that's the reason. I don't think they're a military threat at this point, but we should be vigilant to that military threat.
So you're not worried about them potentially having nuclear capabilities right now?
Well, I think it's a concern, and I think we would be naive to think that Israel is not going to act in conjunction with us to address this situation. It's something that we should be vigilant toward. What is the threat? But you know, going in and bombing Iran tomorrow. They're just gonna bury their nuclear development deeper in the earth if that's what we do.
Yeah, and I mean,
there's no end.
Yeah, and I mean, the sanctions don't seem to work. Nothing seems to work with them. But I want to shift gears because you brought it up at the beginning, running for the Libertarian Party. You started off running the Republican race, and you had to battle to get even to appear in 2 debates. What were the challenges of trying to run as a Republican in this climate, and why the decision to move to the Libertarian Party?
Well, I really think that the fastest growing segment of this country are libertarian-leaning individuals. I really do think libertarians embrace the best of both parties, and that's the notion of, if you've got a heart, you're a Democrat. If you got a brain, you're a Republican. Well, I think we all have hearts and brains. That's something that I think. And right now, we've got some really serious issues facing this country, and it starts with the economy. It starts with the fact that I think we're going to experience a monetary collapse as a result of continuing to print as much money as we are beyond our ability to raise that money. There's a consequence to the mathematics of continuing to print more money than what we take in. So we need to address it. I'm promising to submit a balanced budget to Congress in the year 2013. Now that isn't promising to balance the budget because Congress is going to have to do that, but I'm going to submit that document, Alexis. I'm also promising to veto any legislation where expenses exceed revenue. You can argue that Congress will just override that veto. I'm going to argue that spending will be less in that scenario than any other possible scenario that you could come up with.
I mean, you were able to do great things with the budget in New Mexico, but, you know, getting into Washington, I mean, we've seen that the Senate hasn't passed a budget in over 1,000 days. It's been 3 years now. I mean, how would you deal with a Congress that doesn't seem like it wants to do any legislating?
Well, and so here we come up with contrasts. Is you know, a president that goes along with Congress is what has got us where we're at right now. So how about a president that's not going to go along with Congress? Because Congress right now and the president, you know, racking up $1.4 trillion in new debt every year. Let's balance the budget, and let's do it tomorrow. Let's not make this a 20-year phenomenon that really means let's never balance the budget. Let's do it now.
No, and you know, we talked a little since 2008. The unaffiliated voter, that seems to be like the fastest growing segment of the electorate right now. You know, we've seen the Tea Party emerge because of spending. We kind of seen the Occupy movement emerge because of the distrust of big banks and corporations. How would you bring those people together under the same tent?
They need to be brought together. The notion that we need to slash spending, which in my opinion was what the Tea Party started out with, and the fact when it comes to Occupy Wall Street that this country doles it out unfairly. Look, politicians from both parties have their hands out to grant you, whether you're an individual, whether you're a group, whether you're a corporation, they're out to give you an advantage if you're willing to pay for it. So the country's up for sale, and it needs to stop. What can be done, what government can provide, is a level playing field for everybody to have access to the American dream, which is if you're willing to work hard and innovate, you can get ahead.
Equal opportunity, but not necessarily equal outcomes. But I want to talk a little bit about your strategy because, you know, running as a third-party candidate sure is not an easy task. What is your plan going forward, going against two major establishment parties with a lot of money?
So the pie-in-the-sky scenario is that conceivably the Libertarian nominee could be polling at 15% against Obama, and I'm going to believe the nominee is going to be Romney. And if the Libertarian candidate for president polls at 15%, then the Libertarian candidate for president will be on the debate stage with Romney and Obama, and I think anything is possible at that point. 70% of Americans right now are saying they would consider voting for a third-party candidate. It has never been that way before. When Perot ran against Bush and Clinton, 40% of Americans said they would consider voting for a third-party candidate. Today, 70%, unprecedented.
So you think it's feasible that a third-party option, this could be the election year, that a third-party option can be a real alternative? Well,
and that the third-party alternative would be the party that actually is going to say, here are what the problems are. I think everybody's pointing out what the problems are. Nobody's talking about the solutions. And then you've got to have a candidate that's got a resume to suggest that they're going to actually, you know, doggedly pursue the agenda that they're talking about.
Now, talk a little bit about the fundraising aspect, and for you, because, you know, we've seen Ron Paul kind of set this model, being able to attract younger people into the Libertarian Party, Republican Party. What is your strategy with fundraising aspect?
Well, so back to pie in the sky. Pie in the sky is that the Libertarian nominee for president, I hope to be the Libertarian nominee for president, does get on the debate stage in the national debates for president. And I will tell you, Alexis, when if that happens, fundraising will go out the roof.
Do you think that will happen, though? I mean, it seemed like just being able to get onto the stage for a Republican debate was a challenge. Do you think that maybe that it will be feasible for that for you to debate with Obama?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be doing this if the possibility didn't exist to actually win. And I know that probably sounds far-fetched, but you know, I think for the most part, Ron Paul and I have always talked about the same message. Ron Paul and I do have differences, but It's the same agenda. It's liberty, it's freedom, it's the personal and the fiscal responsibility that goes along with that. I don't think Ron Paul is going to be the Republican nominee. So I think this message ends at that point unless somebody else takes it up. And I'm a messenger here. I think Ron Paul's a messenger. He's always said that. I believe that. But it needs to be more than just a couple people talking about a liberty and freedom agenda. It needs to be about a lot more. At the point where there's a lot more, it resonates. Communication 101. Look, when you hear the same message from two different sources, it resonates more. You begin to understand it a little bit better. So Ron Paul's not the only person talking about this. I'm not the only person talking about this. There are millions that arguably, if given the opportunity, would be doing the same thing that I'm doing right now.
Well, it looks like that the nation is ready to have that conversation and actually look at that.
I believe that. I do believe that in my heart. And I believe that unless we address the problems that we have, we're going to find ourselves without a country. Not a very sexy message. When you talk about reducing Medicare and Medicaid by 43%, which balances the federal budget, what people aren't understanding is that the alternative is no Medicaid and Medicare, because we have a collapsed economy, we have a collapsed government, we have a dollar that doesn't purchase a thing.
So you're not going to see this kind of passion from Mitt Romney right here. Governor, thank you so much for being with us today, and
Alexis,
good luck with the rest of your campaign.
Well, thank you. Always great being on.
And to learn more about Governor Gary Johnson and his campaign, visit GaryJohnson2012.com. And stay tuned for more of our 2012 political coverage. For PJTV, I'm Alexis Garcia.